So we've got an old metal Necron here. You can see he's got a bit of a zenith undercoat going. It's not great, it's pretty patchy. That doesn't matter. We're going to start with Vallejo Royal Purple. I'm just going to slap that all over him. Not worrying too much about being tidy. I'm actually using probably my most beat up brush for this job. Just because you really don't need to use your nice little Kulinski for this kind of thing. Got a wet palette going as well, which I only just started using. It's a kitchen sponge and some baking paper. The game plan here is that we're going to lay down some purple and then work up through some dry brushed blue highlights, and then we'll finish off the skin with some sort of manual edge highlighting, and we'll go back in and pick out all the metal parts, and then we'll do some washes, and then we'll take a stab at the base, and that'll pretty much be it. I may not go in that order exactly, but that doesn't matter. One little fun thing is that when I got this model, his lower hand he didn't actually come with him. So that little hand down the bottom it's a bit smaller, that actually came from a Plaguebearer of Nurgle. So it's quite different, but I reckon it fits pretty well. Couldn't tell. The friend that gave this model to me to paint up, it's the only one he had. Somehow he's got a full Necron army, but he only had one old Flayed One, the origin of which is unknown. Everything else he owns is plastic. I think they're pretty cool models though. I like this guy's kind of hunched pose. It's more zombie-like than most of the Necrons. So the reason we're painting in purple is that when I sat down to paint him, I looked across at my paints and that was the first one I looked at. I haven't seen a great deal of purple or blue Necron, so I thought it would be pretty cool. The idea here is to get something that's pretty quick and easy to paint out. Now, I'm only doing one model here, but you could apply this method to larger batches pretty easy. Alright, we're moving on to the first dry brush. We're going to put some Vallejo Magic Blue and mix it in with our purple. It's probably a bit more purple there than there is the blue. You can take a nice flat edge brush, it's a Citadel one. Mix it up and dry it off. Then I get most of the paint out of there, probably 80%. And as we work up through the dry brush layers, it'll get even less. This will be the heaviest one. Now I like to think about the light source when I dry brush, so the way I'm holding it is as if I'm the light source, I'm the sun, so I can see where all the light's going to be falling on him, and then I dry brush accordingly. So what this means is that from underneath he's going to still be mostly purple. I usually do this sort of sweeping back and forth motion. I feel like it gets most of the edges that need to be got. Keeps things pretty even. You'll probably want to pay particular attention to the face. That should be the focal point of any miniature. When we get to the brighter dry brushing and the edge highlights, we'll put a bit more there on the head, on the face. It's not a realistic way of painting, but it does draw attention to the important details. And this is art. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect or realistic. So that's some Vallejo Magic Blue, which I'm just using straight. I'm gonna do the same method as before, but wipe off even more paint this time. Just test it on my hand there to make sure not much is coming off. Should have almost a powdery consistency. And it's that same sweeping motion back and forth. This time I'll focus more on the higher parts of the miniature where that light's definitely going to be hitting the most. And just any point that is interesting and I want to draw attention to as well. There's really not much to it. I usually find dry brushing to be pretty fun. It's a pretty loosey-goosey way of painting. And because we're doing it before any other colours or methods or anything, it really doesn't matter how wild we get. So we're just going to work in a bit of white into our blue just to brighten it up and create the next layer. This will be the brightest, most sparing dry brush layer. I talked about, we start with the head and give that a bit of attention. Make sure that really pops out. Now this might look a bit messy, but you gotta remember that these things are going to be viewed from a metre or two away if you're playing on a table. And if you only care about getting them ready for the tabletop, then this is plenty good enough. Nice bright schemes like this are what pop and make your army look a bit interesting. I'm moving on to a smaller, more refined sable brush, because we're going to be doing some more intricate parts, picking out some of the metal using Citadel lead belcher here. Citadel paint pots are pretty shit, so I have to use a paddle pop stick to get the paint onto the palette. I'm just going to start picking out all the parts that look like metal to me, or look like they should be metal, and we'll make them look like that. I remember there was quite a few spots on him that I wasn't sure whether it was supposed to be skin or metal, but it didn't really matter in the end, as long as there was some contrast there. I think picking out all the joints like this definitely helps to bring back that robotic kind of vibe for this guy. But I do really dig the 80s neon kind of vibe we've got going for the rest of him. You might have noticed my very, very glitzy mini holder. It's a Vallejo environmental texture paint. It's pretty much the perfect shape for this, actually. A bit of blue tack and we're sweet. Obviously the claws are important to pick out, get that Freddy Krueger look. This is about the time when I realised that this was the brush that is busted up, not the one that stays together. You might notice the hairs are kind of shooting off all over the place. I'm just going to pick out the skull, being careful not to go over the top of the dry brushing. So at this point you can really see what feels like an entire skeleton underneath all that blue. Feels very complete. I'm going to do a little work on the base now while the parts up top dry a bit. Got some Vallejo charred brown, that'll form the base layer for our ground. And again, be pretty messy, just don't get it on his feet. But aside from that, we just slap it on there. Back to one of the crappy brushes, because we're not too fussed about precision here. I think this is a Tamiya modeling brush. Started out pretty good, but she's pretty busted up now. So adding this kind of warmer tone really helps to contrast against the blue and the purple. Contrasting warmth cold. Makes it pop a bit. And that was a pretty thick layer, so we're going to leave the base alone for a bit and move back to some shading. We've got Citadel Druchii Violet, which is it's a pretty awesome colour. Just going to pop it into one of my jar lids so that I don't flood my wet palette. I'm just going to add a little bit of Nuln oil in there as well, just to darken it down. Make sure that it's darker than that base layer we put down of purple. This also means we can get away with using it on the metal as well. Now we're going to be pretty liberal with this, just slapping it everywhere. The only thing to make sure is that we don't leave any thick pools that are going to show up and look a bit funny later on. So I'm going to try and push it into all the crevices and the cracks and the folds where each texture meets. Notice there I just pulled off some extra. I was going to pull up and not look real good. I haven't done the edge highlighting yet. That'll be after the shading. At this point I switched to just using Nuln oil by itself, just to give some more depth to the metals. Trying not to add any to the fleshy parts. They're already dark enough. And while I've got it out, add some Nuln oil to the base. Create some contrast there as well. You can see down the bottom there I've got the Nuln oil sitting on the cutting mat, and that's because I spilled it. Because I'm an idiot. I believe I've cut out the part where I wiped that up with the towel there. And coming back with the electric blue, we're going to add more white than we did last time to create the final edge highlight. And we use that to go all over the dry brushing work. Well, carefully. And I can see there that it's the same colour as before, so we're going to go a bit brighter. That's about right. Now this is the better sable brush that I thought I was using in the first place. It's got a nice tip on it. I'm just going to test that out, make sure I've got the right consistency ready. And we're just going to start carefully picking out the edges where the light's going to be the most intense, or where we want people to look, draw deep, draw the eyes. When I'm using one of my better brushes like this one, I try to make sure I clean it with water pretty often. Acrylic paint dries bloody fast, so you don't want to let any of it dry in the bristles, because that's how the other one ended up all split. I'd say this one, Windsor and Newton, cost a bit much to just kind of wreck it like that. This guy's got a lot of interesting folds and creases in his skin. Gives us a lot of things to kind of pick out. You can see this is almost like dry brushing, because I actually wiped a lot of this back off and I'm just using the edge of the brush sort of at a 45-degree angle to create that edge highlight. But like I said, it's almost like a dry brush technique. It takes a few passes to build up a nice consistency there that I'm happy with. You can over exaggerate the highlights on the face a little bit. I usually tend to. You can see I've sort of brought them down further down the face than I might have otherwise, further than they've gone down the arm or the leg. I don't usually wash my hands after I do stuff like this in terms of getting the paint off, so sometimes you get some funny looks when you're out at the shops. Especially if you've been using red paint. I'm going to switch to Vallejo Chainmail Silver, which is a brighter silver than Lead Belcher. And we're going to use that just to clean up the middle parts. So not only does it cover up any messy bits that we shaded, but it also brightens up the overall tone. Just like any other highlighting, we're going to focus mostly on the top, where the light's going to hit the most. At least with our light source of the sun at midday. I'm not always convinced this actually does much, but you can see that the shine where the light hits it does pop a bit more, so I think it's worth it. Now we're going to switch over to Livery Green from Vallejo. We're going to try and not stuff up the eyes with some little green dots. I've got a tiny little brush that I use just for this. It's got about 2 hairs on it. I grabbed some Vallejo Beastie Brown just to create a dry brushing highlight over the base. This is a smaller brush than I use for the other dry brushing, but I just don't want to get any on his feet. It's actually the same brush I used for putting on that purple. Just a bit of a beater. I probably use it for about 80% of the stuff I do. I grabbed some Iraqi sand, which is a model colour one from Vallejo, just for that final little pass of highlight. You don't always have to go this extra on the base, but I like it to really pop a bit. I'm just going to pop him off that larger base and put him on this smaller one to make it easier to get to the rim with Vallejo black. We're going to use a nice clean, not messed up fan brush. I find that's usually easiest for doing this. That's about it. We got a nice little neon looking Necron fella. Just give him a little temporary display base here, bit of blue tack. There you go. We'll call him Nelly, the neon Necron.